Hello guys, welcome back to another episode of Codergirl.py. My name is Serenity, aka Codergirl. This is my friend Scooter, and today I'm going to introduce you to getting user input using Python. Hope you enjoy! Alright, so today we will cross a huge milestone in programming, and that is getting user input. Everything you've programmed up until now has been static, so it hasn't been interactive. But in this video, I'm going to show you how to get user input and make interactive programs. So let's get right to it. In my IDE, I have one new folder, input. In it, I have 4 files, input.py, input1.py, input2.py, and printingstrings.py. Let's open up printingstrings.py, which will warm us up before we dive into the other files. Alright, so we've already covered that you can combine strings by adding them together with a plus sign. You can add as many strings as you want together. You can see I have an example here. Username equals the string coder plus the string girl plus the string .py. Because we're adding them all together, this will result in just one string, Codergirl.py. In addition to combining strings and just storing them in variables, we can also combine strings in print statements and print them out. Take a look at the print statement I have in printingstrings.py. I have prints, the string my name is, plus the string Serenity. Because we're adding these two strings together, it will equal one string, my name is Serenity. And so I'll print out that one string. We can also do this with variables and strings. Here I have print my YouTube username plus username. Because username is a placeholder for the string codergirl.py, we can combine it in a print statement. So this will combine the string my YouTube username is and the string codergirl.py, since username is a placeholder for the string codergirl.py. This will result in one string, that is, my YouTube username is codergirl.py. Note that when we are combining the strings, we're just using plus signs. There are other ways to combine strings, but for now, since we're new at programming, we're just using plus signs. Alrighty, so let's run this program by clicking the Run button up top. When we run it, you can see that it outputs all of the combined strings. Perfect! One last thing to cover before we move on is that you can also combine strings stored in arrays. As long as it's a string, you can combine it. So now with the knowledge of combining strings, we can start learning about getting user input. Let's exit printingstrings.py and go into input.py. So input is a function that prints out a prompt and then returns or hands us the user's response. As a reminder, a function is a piece of reusable code that does a specific task. To use input, we'll write input, open parentheses, prompt, closing parentheses, where prompt is the prompt that input will print out. Because input returns the user's response, we can use it by itself, meaning that the response won't be recorded. For example, in input.py, I have input. This won't be recording since we're using it by itself. Enter. The string, this won't be recorded since we're using it by itself. Enter is the prompt that will be printed out. Input will then take in the user's response, but it won't be recorded since we aren't assigning it to anything, since we aren't assigning it to a variable. To record the information from input, we have to assign it to a variable. In input.py, I have name equals input into your name. Input will return the user's response to the prompt, and that information will be stored in the variable name. So name will be a placeholder for whatever the user enters. It's important to know that whatever the user enters will be stored as a string. So even if the user inputs 1, which is an integer, it will be stored as the string 1, since input returns a string. And since input will always return a string, we can combine it with another string to make one combined string. In input.py, we do just that. We combine hello, the variable name, and an exclamation mark, and then print that out. So before we go on, let's run this program and see what happens. When we run the program by clicking the Run button up top, you can see that it outputs the prompt in our first input. This won't be recorded since we're using it by itself. Enter. Then you can see it has the cursor, which tells us that it's waiting for our response. So since this won't be recorded, we can just enter something totally random. I'll just enter coding is fun for right now. Notice that we can enter whatever we want: punctuation, spaces, integers, strings, etc. So let's hit enter. You can see it outputs the prompt in our second input. Enter your name. This response will be recorded since it is assigned to the variable name. So I'll enter my name, Serenity. When I click enter, you can see it outputs hello Serenity. Since it combines the string hello, our variable name, and an exclamation mark. So that means that if I reran this program and entered Codergirl as my name, it would print out hello Codergirl. Cool, right? So let's go back to input.py because there is one last thing that I'd like to cover before moving on. Python is constantly changing as developers identify issues in Python and update certain parts. As a result, there are multiple versions of Python available. The most popular are versions of Python 3, such as Python 3.4.3, 3.6.2, 3.5, etc., and Python 2.7. In Python 3, you use input, INPUT, open parentheses, closing parentheses, for user input. In Python 2.7, you use raw input, RAW underscore INPUT, open parentheses, closing parentheses, for user input. Check which version you are using by entering Python -V in the terminal. I'll have links in the description if you want to upgrade your Python version. So now that we've covered that, let's see some more examples of how input works. Let's exit input.py and open up input1.py. In input1.py, you can see we have some more uses of input. Input open parentheses 1 closing parentheses, input 2.3, input true, and input with the prompt being the array 1, 2, and 3. You'll notice in these that instead of a string input, or instead of a string prompt, we use integers, floats, booleans, and arrays. This is because you can put almost anything for a prompt. It doesn't just have to be a string. So input will output the prompt just like it would if it was a string or if it was a non-string. Just note that input won't automatically put a space after the prompt. In order to put a space there, you have to manually do it in a string. It's a small detail, it doesn't really matter, but for me, I just think it personally looks better. So it's based on what you want. Also note that I'm not assigning these inputs to a variable, so the user's response will not be recorded. Alright, so after those inputs, you can see I have the following code. Nothing entered equals input, enter nothing. Just hit the enter key. New line, print nothing entered. If a user enters nothing, in other words, they just click the enter key, the function input will return an empty string, or just 2 quotation marks. So, with a variable nothing entered, if the user just enters the enter key, nothing entered will be a placeholder for an empty string, the 2 quotation marks. Printing the variable nothing entered will just print nothing. If you run this, you can see it outputs the first input we have. I can just enter the enter key for all of these since they weren't assigned to anything. Now we've reached the input, enter nothing. Just hit the enter key. If we hit the enter key, you can see that it prints out absolutely nothing, just like planned. Perfect. So now we know how to get user input. That's wonderful. In input2.y, I've programmed a little example program showing you how you can use input to check for a username. So let's exit out of input1.py and head into input2.py. In input2.py, the example I programmed is checking if an entered username is correct. You can see that I've set a username to compare the input with, set username, which is a placeholder for the string, Codergirl.py 1234. Super creative, right? Then I use the function input to ask the user for an input. Finally, I check if the username the user entered is the same as our set username, Codergirl.py 1234. If it is, I print you're logged in, and if it isn't, I print invalid username. You can see how I've combined a lot of what you guys have learned, if statements, input, print statements, variables, etc., to create a more complicated program. So let's run this and see how it goes. I'll run the program twice. First time, I'll show you how it works correctly, and the second time, I'll show you how it works if you enter an invalid username. When I run it, you see it has a prompt, enter your username. I'll enter the right username this time, Codergirl.py 1234. And when I hit enter, you can see it prints out, you're logged in, just like it should if the right username is entered. Now let's run this program again by clicking the run button up top again. And this time I'll enter the wrong username. So at this prompt, I'll just enter wrong username. You can see it printed out, invalid username, like it should. Perfect. Now that you have the tool of input at your disposal, see what you can do. Can you make a program that checks for both a username and a password? Try and find what input can do for you. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please leave a like and subscribe, and I will catch you guys later. This is Codergirl.py signing out.